3, 2, 1. Let's go. Ladies and gentlemen, everybody on this earth. And if you're out of here and you're able to see this as well, welcome. Hey, we back for another week. The Say Something Show's in the building. I got Mitch here. I got Blanc here. We are 10 toes down, ready to attack today's agenda. We got some good stuff, as promised. We have our fantasy football preview. So we got a lot of good stuff to go over. I don't know if you guys have done drafts already. If you haven't, don't worry. We got you. We'll prepare you for however many teams you have in your league, what kind of league you got, and where you might draft. Okay, so we got all that covered. We'll have a little bit of baseball sprinkled in here, and we may get a little bit more NFL coverage if need be at the end. But again, today is going to be mainly a fantasy football special, as promised. So welcome, welcome, welcome. And before we get to that, as we always do, our lovely tradition here, which we hope we've introduced to you, we want to do our check-in. We make sure we're all good before we get to everything in the agenda. So are you Gucci? How you doing, my brother? Good to see you.
Man.
Check in with the folks.
Doing good. Just had a good weekend, man. Went on a lot of hikes. Went out to Point Reyes.
There we go.
Dillon Beach out here. So
there we go.
Just got to see a lot of nature. Walked about like 20 miles. So just got some good exercise, man. How about you?
That's a lot. I'm good, man. Like I said last time, I'm just prepping for school, man, getting ready. Excited to see when grades come out for my first summer class. I think that'll be, I'm big A gang. That'll be next week, so I'm excited to see that. And then, I start on the 28th, so it's coming up right here. So just kind of getting all the supplies ready, getting the stuff needed. Not only to do the schoolwork, but also to participate in this internship. So, just getting my thinking cap on, getting my student jacket ready, and, we'll be prepared come September, come August to get this business done. So I'm kind of also making sure I soak in the last little bit of downtime that I got, utilizing that for self-care, making sure 100% when I need to be. So, man, again, I hope we gave you enough time to do y'all check-ins. They're key. They're clutch. Mental health, if you care about the person, man, don't forget, put that at the forefront. Doesn't take a lot for you to ask a question, check in. So we're hoping that we remind y'all healthy habits here at the Say Something Show. So let's jump right in. I want to ask you, Money Mitch, who is your number one player this year in fantasy football?
Man, the person I've been going for, I had the number 2 pick in my draft that I had recently. I got lucky enough to get Christian McCaffrey.
Big C, man.
I don't think you can go wrong with him. He's a stud, catching the ball from out of the backfield, running it down on third downs.
Beast.
Big touchdown gang all the time. Every time he's running in, he's trying to get a touchdown.
Beast.
So I think he's definitely good as a number 1 option. Either him or maybe like a Breece Hall is somebody who could be a stud for you with the New York Jets. Or even maybe a CeeDee Lamb from last year doing this thing.
Get that contract worked out.
Those are the top 3 guys right now in fantasy. So I think they'd be the best.
For me, it's definitely between C-Mac and Tyreek.
Tyreek's a good one.
Yeah, like Tyreek to me is mercurial. He's one of those players where it's just he could win you a week, man. He could have one of those. Oops, I hit a 60 ball. And there's not a lot of 60 ballers out there. There's not a lot of 50 ballers, not a lot of 40 ballers to say that.
Right, yeah.
And he's a guy that's good for 3 of those a year. I can't tell you which number it'll fall under. It's kind of like skee ball, you know what I mean? But I guarantee you he will land at the 40, 50, or 60 mark at least 3 times this year. And so that's a guy who, if I'm going to go number 1, I like looking at a guy that can win me a week. C-Mac also can do that for sure. But that's the reason that I add Tyreek into the conversation. Sure. Is just, man, that is a guy who I've played year in and year out. And he swings those matchups heavily. You just cross your fingers until he's done on Sunday or Monday or Thursday. Whatever it is. They put
soon to be Tuesday and Wednesday and Monday.
Every night football.
Every night.
But yeah, so I think you can't go wrong with either of those guys. And as we all know with football, in general, you're just sitting there with the Jesus prayer hands going, please, not early. So next, I got to ask you, Mitch, what is the hardest position for you in fantasy football to draft successfully?
I think it's a mix between two because tight end, I feel like is always like maybe I can wait a little bit more, and then four of them go before you can get picks. So it just ends up all bad at the end. And then you have
jabs.
Like Dallas Goedert is your starting tight end, and nobody needs that when they got better options for you.
Work.
So that's always really tough for tight end. And then also running back, I feel like that's another one that could end up being an avalanche of guys going quick, and then you end up with, no offense, like a Josh Jacobs and then like a Joe Mixon or something like that as your number one.
Yep.
And then you're looking at like an Aaron Jones or somebody like that, Brian Robinson Jr. as your second. Yep. So it could be really tough if you don't have like a back-to-back pick in the draft. It makes it hard because if you think you can, I'll wait one more round, that's when you usually get hit. And that's the worst things that happen in my drafts is, I was about to pick him, and then the guy right in front of me picks him, and it ruins everything.
And sometimes it's tough to have a backup plan.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Sometimes you are
Sometimes you're like, this is the only option. And if not him, I'm going down the ADP. Right. And
this fulfills the team right here.
That's when like the draft recap is like, yeah, you really reached in this round for that guy because sheesh.
Right. Panic. I definitely agree. I think for me, I think tight end is the easy answer because of the shortage in general of talent at the position. I would say running back, and then I would also sprinkle in quarterback. And I don't mean quarterback in the sense that there aren't good ones out there. And I'm not an advocate of like go after a quarterback early and get the job done.
Because young Glockiana's been going in like the ninth. So it's like
so you can get money. You can get money around. But I will say that it is one of those positions for how much people talk about, don't worry about quarterback. Don't worry about it. Is funny how I never see fantasy football teams win with Dookie quarterback. Mm-hmm. Never. You don't never see one of those guys go on a run. It's like, who's he got?
I got Baker Mayfield.
Who's he got? Right? And so I found myself more than I care to be truthful about in a situation where like I'm scrambling for quarterbacks, and it's funny because I just see year in and year out, the preaching around, throw the quarterback to the trash. You can get whatever you want to get out of a quarterback. And, my only personal, experience has led me to push back on that narrative just in terms of, I wouldn't go early and dive out and, crash out over a quarterback. But also let's not act like, this isn't a guy who, if you get the right one, it's a consistent 25 and up a week.
Right, exactly. And it goes to what you're talking about with Tyreek, where it's like, hey, he can give you 60 balls. And then, like, that's the difference of quarterbacks is, like, you have guys who will give you consistent 20s and then sometimes 30s and 40s.
Yes.
And then there's the guys who's like, yeah, we'll give you some 25s, 26s, but there might be some 12s.
And an 8.
And you know what I mean? And so those guys are always rough, especially in the weeks where they have another guy going off against you.
Right, 100%. So let's go over a top 5. We love our top 5s here. Top five. And then a touch of a sleeper. So you sprinkle a sleeper in at the end, and we go through QB, wide receiver, running back, tight end, respectively. So start off with the QB, top 5, and then a sleeper.
Ooh. All right, top 5. I got Patrick Mahomes.
Big dog.
I got Josh Allen.
Big dog.
Got CJ Stroud.
Okay.
Yeah, gotta get some love for the young guys. Who else am I missing right now? I know Anthony Richardson has been going high a lot.
Yeah.
And then hopefully if he can make a comeback this year off an injury, Joe Burrow could really be a guy.
I
don't know where Jamar Chase is right now. That's not looking good for Cincinnati, but
but he's under contract too, though. So he's one of them cats where it's like all these guys, I respect it. Go get your bag, but let's not act like Jamar Chase isn't losing money right now.
Yeah,
Jamar Chase is getting fined actively. And Brandon Ayuk, for all that talk, I will circle back the wagons on you, brother. You're doing the same thing, bro. And what's hilarious is you are a hold in. You're at practice. Your scary ass. You ain't trying to get fined. Anyway, let's get back to business. Go ahead and finish. I apologize.
But yeah, I think that was 5. I would even throw Brock Purdy in there. Just that offense that they have. he can spread it around to everybody.
Explosive.
He's been the top QB in fantasy as well, so he's nobody to sleep on.
Now, do you have a sleeper?
My sleeper, maybe like if he can come back from injury solid, we got to give it to Justin Herbert because I feel like he's a guy that everybody's kind of counting out, especially the Chargers in general with all the new regime with Harbaugh in there. I think maybe he can reignite Justin Herbert, and hopefully the injury is not too severe that he can't make a comeback. So I'll say he's a big sleeper because he's sometimes going undrafted from what I see in fantasy. So he's somebody you could just scoop up last pick of the draft a lot of the time. Yeah.
I like that, man. I like that. I would say, the number one has got to be in fantasy. I'd say Josh Allen.
Patty?
Yeah. Well, I don't like Patty in fantasy that much. Patty, look, you know me, you and I, we got a weird little relationship type thing going on. Definitely love, hate, hate your voice, hate the way you play against the Niners, hate a lot of things, hate your wife. But, I respect the impact you've brought to the game. There's a respect aspect to what you do in terms of winning. Gotta give it to you. But in fantasy, especially with the way that Chiefs offense is, I'm not a believer. I think that defense has now eclipsed that offense in a lot of ways. I think obviously Mahomes is Mahomes when it matters most, but if I'm signing up for something, it's to draft their defense this year. I don't know what that offense is going to be. Of course, I'll take Travis Kelce, but Rashee Rice is up in the air. All that stuff is up in the air.
Worthy,
not touching that guy.
Hollywood Brown.
Yeah, and it's been a long time since Tyreek was there that Mahomes was really that guy in fantasy. Yeah. Where it's like, I'm putting up 35, so I'm just going, So I would say, it's definitely Josh Allen 1, even though people are going to get at me. I'm going to go Patrick Mahomes 2. I'm going to go, actually, you know what? I'm going to go Lamar Jackson 2.
Yeah,
I'm going to go Lamar Jackson 2. And then I'm going to go Patty 3. Just off the strength of the winning. Give you, that's what it is. I guess I probably do go Joey B.
What about Jalen?
Right there.
Jalen Hurts?
I'm not a big
fan.
Jalen.
Not in the top 5.
He's really good in fantasy, but I gotta hear that he's locked in this year because I hear that there's a lot of internal beef with him and the head coach, which doesn't surprise me because they've had a lot of weird stuff going on that sideline. They don't ever keep it together over there.
I haven't been a big Jalen Hurts pick kind of guy.
But if you're gonna pick him, I'd rather have him in fantasy than as my real life quarterback. Let's be clear. So
we'll take him.
Yeah, surely. So yeah, I mean, if I were to put a 5, I would probably go Jalen Hurts for fantasy, assuming he's there, and assuming that the Eagles are going to be what we think they can be. Yep. So that would be the 5, and I'm putting Joey there, assuming their offense is what it is as well. But I actually like Joey B a lot this year. And it'll just be about some of these rushing quarterbacks. I actually like A. Rich a lot too.
Yeah.
Like
I
think that like if it weren't gonna be Burrow, it's gonna be A. Rich just because I'm not even worried about that 5th slot because I love rushing quarterbacks. So like when it comes to fantasy, say what you want, but some of these guys can throw 128 yards.
Yeah.
Excuse me, and put up 30 points. It ain't pretty, and we all watched what Justin Fields did.
Right, he was going off.
Right, and you're not getting that from Mr. Stand in the pocket. I don't care what kind of day you have.
Right, Jared Goff's not getting that.
Stop.
Ever.
Stop.
Ever.
Stop. So, I think actually I'm going to have to edit that. I'm going to throw A. Rich and the ADP vouches for that as well. That A. Rich is being valued higher this year in fantasy. So I'm going to have A. Rich at my 4 ski, and I'll put Jalen Hurts at my 5. I know CJ's left out. I know there's some guys left out. I'm not big on CJ this year, though. But, hey, we got a lot to talk about. But, I know there's some guys I'm missing out on. My sleeper this year would be Kyler Murray.
Okay.
I think Kyler Murray, again, rushing theme here. But I think him and Marvin are going to be amazing. Marvelous Marv, Messy Marv, whatever you want to call them. I think they're going to be one of the better 1-2 punches in terms of quarterback wide receiver duos. I think that The tight end they have, Trey McBride, I think is awesome.
Stud.
I think he's going to continue to take steps forward. He's young. And then I think that they drafted this guy, Trey Benson, who I'm really high on as well, who I'll talk about a little bit later.
Yeah.
But I think that offense is well improved, and I think we all remember with a pretty dookie offense, he's done some damage. He's done some real fantasy damage.
Killing it,
yeah. So next would be, we're going to take it to the world of the wide receivers.
Wide receivers. All right, here we go. We know the likely suspects here. We got A.J. Brown up top. He's always going to be a stud, but again, we got questions with Jalen Hurts.
Yeah.
So we don't know if he's going to be able to get him the ball.
Yeah.
And he's got Devontae Smith out there as well. Tyreek Hill, of course, just like we talked about earlier. 60-point games every once in a while. Puts up a consistent 20 to 30. Can't stop him. After that, I would say Justin Jefferson, number 3. He just has a tough quarterback situation. But no matter who's throwing the ball, they're throwing it his way, and he's most likely catching it. Then I got Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think somebody who's great for PPR, especially from the guys at the top of the list.
Mm-hmm.
He's always a target for Jared Goff out there, and he's always getting himself open.
Mm-hmm.
And then I kind of want to go, just to give him his props from last year, having such a good year, I'm going to give Puka Nacua some props and throw him on the list. I think he's somebody who can be devastating with Matthew Stafford, and having Cooper Kupp back this year is just going to open him up even more. So those are the guys I like to see out there.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how the target shares work out with a healthy Cooper Kupp. From what I'm hearing, he looks like he's back, so it'll be dope to see. Did you say a sleeper?
A sleeper. So he shouldn't be much of a sleeper, but I think a lot of people just don't know if it was real or not. But I think a sleeper for me has been Tank Dell. I think Tank Dell could go crazy. I know there's Stephon Diggs and Nico Collins as well out there.
Yeah.
But I think that C.J. Stroud and him have a good connection. He's somebody who's quick, be in the slot. He's going to get a lot of options out there. So I think Tank Dell is a good guy to get even a bit later in the rounds for fantasy.
Absolutely. Very twitchy guy.
Yeah.
Great out of the slot.
He can give you some 25-point games.
Absolutely. Great out of the slot, but he's one of those rare slot guys that can take it all away.
Yeah.
So my wide receiver is tough. I mean, I'm going to have to go. I got to go Tyreek 1.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, if he's, vying for my number 1 overall, there's no way he'd be ranked any lower than that as the wide receiver.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go CD next. And I think that's just based on situation, right? I do think CD's super talented, but I think that Dak Prescott
has nobody else to throw it to.
And he's good enough. Right, you look at a lot of these other guys, and either there's target shares or there's debate amongst how good is this quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
We know what we're going to get out of Dak. Whether you want to be, the highs of the highs on Dak or the lows of the lows,
right?
I don't care. We know what we know what we're going to get. Are they going to win it all? No, right? But is there enough on that table for both of them to eat?
Yeah,
absolutely. And are they going to be the first 2 who get dibs every time any food hits that table?
Yes.
Right. So that's why he's at number 2 for me. Number 3, I'm going to have to go Amon-Ra St. Brown. And this, again, is a situational thing. And this is me talking more in the sense of we're doing a fantasy special.
Right.
Right. If we weren't doing fantasy, these could look a lot different. And maybe going into the season, we'll end up doing that, right? We might break down this stuff divisionally, talk more about the players, skill sets going into it, and then we'll do overall rankings, kind of like men. But this is just for fantasy. So I'm taking Amon-Ra St. Brown. 3rd, his situation to me is plush, better than it was last year. I think that there's no way that they're not going to be feeding him the ball in the same way they were last year. They have the exact same team, barring the fact that maybe Jahmyr Gibbs is absent for a little bit to start, which would only increase his number of, receiving shares, because he's really the short route outlet. And, he's another one of those rare, like we said, slot guys who, if he can take it all the way, he will. And that's not a given. So definitely rocking with my boy at the 3. At the 4, I gotta go with Jamar Chase, and again, this is Joey B, right? And assuming Joey B can stay healthy this whole year, hoping they have a respectable offensive line. Like they said, they've improved it a lot.
Right.
Tyler Boyd is now gone, right? So I think just one less option, and this is already an alpha who's been eating amongst alphas, right? And so I think that he's in a contract year, and I think he's angry, and I think those types of situations usually play out well for the guy who has a chip on their shoulder. So that's my boy right there. And then lastly, we got to go Jay Jettis. And Jay Jettis would be much higher. That's my dog. Like, I love Jay Jettis. Probably, in my opinion, the true number one receiver to me in terms of actual talent. Like, if I wanted to pick one of these guys to put on my Niners, I'm going to take Jay Jettis. And that's a hard one. I mean, there's I'm not saying it like that was an easy choice. It's just for me personally.
Preference.
Yeah, for me personally, he's going to get it done the way that I prefer, right? And he's also the type of guy I believe is what you need out of X attitude-wise, right? And some of these other guys, you're going to get a lot, right? And so he's probably the most toned down to me out of that bunch, and I love that about him. My sleeper – it's tough. Definitely is tough because, I want to go into some names that last year kind of did their thing, but I feel like I have more of a skepticism around some of those players due to their situations changing.
Just throw out a few.
Like, well, for me, I've turned around on a lot of them, for example. Like, I am high on Tank Dell this year, but I was really high on Nico Collins, and I'm no longer. And I am worried a little bit about Tank Dell as well. But I think, in general, if I were to look at a real breakout sleeper, it would be Calvin Ridley. And this isn't a guy who's a sleeper in the sense of
we've
never heard his name, da. But I don't think a lot of people are paying attention to the fact that he just went to Tennessee. Tennessee's pretty boring, right? They have D-Hop. They have Will Levis. Right, their quarterback situation leaves a lot to be desired. They just lost Derrick Henry, but it is going to be a lot more of a throwing offense. They got rid of Derrick Henry for a reason.
They got Tony Pollard and Tyjae Spears,
who are both out the back pass catchers. Right, these are speed backs, and so I believe this offense is going to look a lot different. I believe he will now be the bona fide one, the X. I think it'll put D-Hop in a more natural position now at his age of just being a perfect Y. And so that would be my sleeper this year. If you're looking for a guy that might give you wide receiver one production later, I would check out Calvin Ridley. So let's jump over to our running backs, and we will do the same. So top five and a sleep.
All right, well, we obviously got to go Christian McCaffrey, number one. He's been doing it for years now. He's a stud, a horse for your team, catching balls, running around, gets good PPR for you. So he's been overall the best fantasy player in general. So he's number one for me. I want to see, hopefully, Bijan Robinson, number two, being somebody who can make a huge jump from last year. Hopefully he's being utilized a lot better with more of a veteran quarterback and Kirk Cousins. Also, maybe potentially Michael Penix.
Yeah.
He did look good in his first game. So he's definitely an option. I think Breece Hall is somebody who could take the reins for the Jets for number three. I think he's just going to be an engine for the offense. I think Aaron Rodgers is going to use him a lot like he used Aaron Jones when he was in Green Bay. A lot of dunks, dives just for him. So I think he's somebody who can garner a lot of attention, get like maybe 20, 25 touches a game. Next, I'm going to give it to some of the old heads. We got Saquon and Derrick Henry.
Yep.
I think those two are in great situations where they'll have a lot of open space potentially with the guys that they have around them.
Yeah.
Like we said, we have Jalen Hurts. We have A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, along with Saquon Barkley, now that he's on the Eagles. And then with Derrick Henry, having Lamar Jackson, that's going to be so difficult for teams to figure out that option. I mean,
thunder and lightning.
Both sides, like no matter who, if you don't go full head of steam towards Derrick Henry, he's going to run right through you. So anytime teams are sitting back waiting just to look for who's going to take it,
done deal.
It's a done deal because Lamar will run right by you. So that's going to be great for him. And I think that's a good situation because they don't really pass much in general. So I think he's going to get a lot of touches.
Yeah. Did you say a sleeper?
Sleeper. I want to say Rachaad White is somebody I think could be really good. He's obviously a running back 1, but he's going a little bit later in the round. So for Tampa Bay, I think he could be somebody who takes the next step and really shows out.
Absolutely. All right, for my top 5, obviously we got C-Mac, the Niner great. I will put Breece Hall at the 2. I just think that he still has proven more for me than Bijan. I don't like until the Falcons prove me otherwise, I've never liked that team for fantasy. There's not enough consistency and there's not enough offensive production for it to go around. It's somebody will get it one week, somebody will get it the next week, but they're never all going to get it.
Yeah.
So it's you're playing Russian roulette with that offense. And if I'm picking that high, I would rather have somebody who, for me, like Breece Hall, who I've seen with and without a guy like Aaron Rodgers, put up good points. And even last year with one of the worst quarterback situations in the league, he still had games where he was able to be formidable in fantasy. I also then would go with I like a guy like Saquon this year. I'm really high on Saquon, so I would put Saquon 3rd. I just think Saquon is going to be similar to Derrick Henry, but I think even more. I think he has more tread on the tires than Derrick does left, and I think that Saquon has been with even less. Like Tennessee, he's had some good lines.
Yeah,
he hasn't had some good wide receivers, maybe not always good quarterback play, but they win the trenches in Tennessee. And Saquon has been over there with
the Giants.
The average Joe. That's like playing with my cousins. And I'm sorry, Zane and Eli, much love, but we know you wouldn't help out there if he was going to go ahead and get a sweep. And you got to get on the wing. You're going to let him through. So that's what the Giants were doing to Saquon. And now that he's on a formidable team with a formidable O-line, I think it could look a lot different. I think he'll have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Next, I definitely am going to have to put Jonathan Taylor. I think he'll have a big
bounce back.
Yeah, I think he's going to have a big bounce back year. I think that, if he had played longer last year, we'd be looking at him because of how weak this draft, order is at this point. I think he'd be top 5 easily.
Yeah.
And so I think it's just because of that kind of injury / issues he was having with the front office that kind of marred this whole season's outlook. But he's 100% healthy. Rich is back. He's feeling great about the front office and the coaching staff.
Right.
And he has a whole off season to get right.
And he's going he's ranked 9, 10, 11 in fantasy. So if you're somebody who has that 9, 10 back-to-back pick, I'm not mad seeing Jonathan Taylor and Saquon as my 2 running backs. At all.
Because Jonathan, to me, could finish RB1.
Yeah, 100%.
Which is, that's what you want at that point in the draft. You're swinging for a potential. Could I usurp the rest of these guys, right? So I'm big on Johnny T. And then I would say last for me this year, it would have been Jahmyr Gibbs. I'm super high on baby Gibbs. But I think that, with the injury, they do say he'll still be ready. But, I wouldn't be able to put him there anymore. So I'm going to say it's probably going to be my boy Derrick Henry, and the other guy that I would decide between that would be Kyron.
Yeah, Kyron's solid. I like him a lot.
Kyron, I think, assuming Blake Corum doesn't eat into his touches this year, which could easily happen with the way the Rams like to distribute stuff to their running backs. Kyron, to me, would be higher had they not drafted Blake Corum. And he would be guaranteed ahead of Derrick Henry for me. But because there's Blake Corum there, and Blake Corum isn't a slouch either,
right?
You never know. It could be a 2-headed monster over there. So my sleeper this year would be Jonathan Brooks is a real sleeper.
Okay, yeah. Was that Carolina?
Carolina. Oh, yeah. He's going to start off, I think, the first 6 games. He's coming back from a torn ACL. And I actually don't want to be 100% sure it's ACL. I know something was torn. It might be a meniscus. It might be a meniscus. But it was something that's taken pretty much a year. Yeah. He's been gone for, many a months now. But for anybody who knows, Jonathan Brooks was the guy coming after Bijan.
Yeah.
Right. And he was getting carries when Bijan was there. Mm. The guy's very, very talented. He was the first back drafted, I believe, in this year's draft. In the second round. I'm not 100% sure. I could be capping on that as well. But I know he was one of the top 2, and he was drafted purely because of that talent.
Right.
Right. And he's not going to miss a ton of the season, probably back game 6, but you never know with running backs coming back from injury, how long it takes to integrate in. But if you're looking for a sleeper pick who might, when I say sleeper, I'm talking real sleeper, who might get you going when you really need to make that playoff push and might get you over the hump in some of those playoff matchups, right. I would give a long look to Jonathan Brooks. I personally just picked him up on my fantasy team. He was out on the waivers. I made sure I have an IR spot, so slot him right in there. I would take a long look. You can get him late, and some people don't even realize this guy is who he is because of the fact that he got injured and nobody's talking about him. But he definitely is. He's only competing with Chuba Hubbard.
Yeah.
So he's going to get by him. So if you're looking for a guy that could start potentially really late, that'd be my guy.
And your other boy. Trey Benson,
yes, and I was gonna throw him in another one, but no, but that's good because I'll throw him right here. Trey Benson, even though shouldn't be putting 2 sleepers in because I haven't allowed him to do it, but I'm gonna do it here. Trey's another homeboy where I think that he could be better than Jonathan Brooks. I think that he has a shot to have the best career out of all of them.
Yeah,
and he did some amazing things at Florida State, and in that new offense, I think it's about time James Conner hands over the keys. He's been serviceable for a long time. Everybody loves him in the red zone. But let's start thinking about getting him out of those 3-down packages, start working him in the goal line and late stuff.
Trey's definitely been somebody I've been targeting in like the 10th or 11th round. That's my other bench running back to show up maybe in like week 5, 6 and beyond.
Absolutely. He'll be a second halfer, not planned to start, but those two names, both rookies, would be my guys to definitely keep an eye out for. And if they're on the waiver wire, scoop them.
And just real quick, going back to the wide receivers, just to talk about real sleepers, we got like guys like, I feel like Keon Coleman for the Buffalo Bills.
Yep.
Not much competition. You got Sharif Khalif. What is his name?
Khalif. His last name is Khalif.
He's maybe their number 1. I don't know.
He cannot be. I think his name is Shakir Khalif or something.
Yeah, something like that. Shakir. Sorry for not getting the name right.
Shakir is in there and Khalif is in there as well. Right. You order it, you figure it out, or do more, and we'll know your name.
Exactly. So I feel like that's an open situation. I feel like Brian Thomas Jr. for Jacksonville, another place where it's like I got Christian Kirk.
Yeah, I was hot. We didn't go up and get him, honestly.
Maybe he can be somebody who could really show out for them too.
Christian Kirk has been surprisingly good though too.
Yeah,
like when you look back on his numbers, you're like, what?
Yeah.
Even since the Cardinals, you're just like, no, you low key have put 7 years back to back and just 800 plus easy.
He's always somebody I've like picked up off waivers and stuff.
Does work.
He'll help the whole squad.
Is there any other?
Jordan Addison
and Ladd McConkey would be the other guy that I definitely think could be wide receiver 1 for the Chargers, which is crazy to say, but there's not a lot going on over there, and they love him. Apparently, Quentin, what is his name? The guy they got last year,
Quentin Johnson.
Quentin Johnson. Apparently, he is just giving it away.
Yeah.
And he is not ready for his role. They low-key look at him as a mistake of a draft pick. So Ladd is another guy where I think if you get him at the right spot, he could really ascend to being kind of that Wes Welker, Julian Edelman type impact, even early on. But I love that Keon Coleman. I think both of those guys are right there. Let's move to the last and final tight end. Toughest of them all. Might not even have a 5-piece.
Right? I mean, it's just the likely suspects, all the tight end you guys.
Yeah.
We got Travis Kelce. We got Sam Laporta, who had a crazy good rookie season. Hopefully he can back that up. I know he might have some injury troubles, but hopefully he can stay strong and get back in there. Your boy Trey McBride for the Cardinals. He's somebody I've been targeting as my tight end. He kind of drops a little bit. I know Kelce and Laporta go real early, but his ADP right now, McBride has him a little low, so you can maybe scoop in the 4th or 5th round.
Yep.
Then we have Mark Andrews, just been riddled with injuries over the years, hasn't been able to be consistent, but
when he's out
there, he's going to get money.
Yeah.
George Kittle, it all depends on if his receptions are turning into touchdowns.
Yep.
Because it's not a high quantity, not a high volume of targets for him, even though he is a guy who can catch 10, 15 balls if you need him to.
Oh, he might be the best yak guy.
Like, yeah,
after the catch,
he maximizes every catch that he takes. But unfortunately, there are a lot of mouths to feed in San Francisco.
The most in the league, I think.
He's so great at blocking as well, and they utilize him for that a lot of the time.
He loves it.
Right. Then you start getting into like the Dalton Kincaids and then the Kyle Pitts kind of guys where it's like you said with Atlanta, it's like, can they ever figure out how to play a complete offense and feed everybody so that everybody's getting at least a little bit? You get 100 yards, but you get a touchdown and you get a touchdown. Just spread it out a little bit.
Stop wasting
And then Dalton Kincaid, the same thing. It's just like, is Josh Allen going to throw it your way today? And are they going to go for touchdowns? Or are you going to get 4 receptions for 20 yards?
Right.
And
I do think this year he has more of a shot than ever before. I do worry a little bit about his ADP, but I do think it's also somewhat a swing for the fences pick because of the fact that we have no idea his volume. But if we were to guess, it's going to go up massively.
Same for me with Kyle Pitts, because I feel like if Kirk Cousins can figure it out for them over there, he's just so talented. I feel like he just never got opened up with the last offense that they had, especially with Desmond Ridder, who could not even throw the ball.
Barely throw it 15 yards.
Yeah. So, I just got to imagine they're paying all this money for Kirk Cousins, and they got Michael Penix. One of them got to be able to throw it to you guys. It's only him and Drake London out there. Do they have another good receiver? I think, not that I know of. So no. I just think it's inevitable with the talent that he has. If we have a good quarterback, he can get the ball.
Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, they have the scariest young trio on paper by a long shot.
Mm-hmm.
To have running back who could be the number 1 in the league.
Yeah.
A wide receiver who could also. I mean, he has obviously ways to go, but skill set too.
Mm-hmm.
And a tight end who could be the number 1 tight end in the league. It doesn't even make any sense, and they're still butt. So Atlanta, stop wasting talent, man. Don't draft guys not to use them.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's just.
Well, we are saving them for week 7. It's like, what?
We love Kyle Pitts blocking.
Want to see him catching?
He doesn't block.
Please.
He's not even a blocker. Anyway, my order would be the exact same. I would say Travis to me is number 1.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say in fantasy, I would probably target Laporta.
Right.
Even though Travis Kelce is going higher, to me, the bang for the buck is in Laporta.
Bro is like 34 too.
Yeah.
So he's getting nothing.
And he's going to be the number 1 guy on the offense. That's why everybody's getting him first. And they're really playing that out in their head in terms of the red zone.
Yeah.
But if we're talking about who I'm picking, if I'm really going for the diamond of the class, it's Sam Laporta. I think where you're getting him and what he can be, that to me is borderline like where Jimmy Graham was back in the day before he really ascended to him and Gronk being like, okay, you got to get him in the top 15. So to me, he could be a top 10 player that you're getting outside of that. And so I love Sam Laporta first, Travis Kelce second. I would say Trey McBride is my third. Mark Andrews would be vying with Travis Kelce if he wasn't injured. Like, let me be clear. Like, how productive he is when he's there and how much Lamar loves him.
Mm-hmm.
It's like
big red zone targets.
Right.
Red zone targets.
It's like Mahomes and Kelce. It's like the same relationship where it's like, you save me, I save you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. But like Mitch said, hasn't been able to stay out on the field, hasn't been able to stay in your fantasy lineups. So I'm going to have to dock him for that. Trey at the 3. I'm going to go George Kittle at the 4, and then I'll put Mark Andrews at the 5. George Kittle, for me, the reason is because he, more than a lot of these guys here, can win you a week. He will also give you a 4.
Yeah.
But these guys, they're not really going to give you lots of 35s, and George Kittle's the guy where when he has a day, he has a day.
Yeah.
He's going to go 110 on 8 catches, 3 tugs. Right?
Need it.
And the way our offense works, we're scoring over 30 a game.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to happen again this year. And so the likelihood of him having some of those weeks where he might get you past, where these guys are going to be consistent 15 to 20, but may never see a 30 ball. Right. So that's why I got him where I got him. And then I'll put Mark Andrews at 5. And that's just because I believe he's going to be exactly what I'm talking about. 12 to 15, great, consistent as long as he's out there. But I don't believe you're even going to see a lot of high 20s. You know, I believe 20 might be his ceiling this year, and that'll be touchdown dependent.
Got any sleeper tight ends?
Brock Bowers.
Brocky
boy.
Balboa. Let's go.
Your boy. If you guys are going to look to anybody this year who could turn things up for real, it's going to be Bowers. I've been, hearing all about this dude in camp. The guy is the real deal. People aren't mad that the Raiders didn't draft a quarterback. That's all because it's Brock Bowers. Because their quarterbacks suck. But, Brock is so much of a safety net, and he's done this a couple years at Georgia. People forget he wasn't always there with A1 quarterbacks. There was Stetson Bennett. There was some Duke over there sitting there, hike, and just getting it done. Right? And this was a guy making the most all the time and showing quarterbacks who didn't have the strongest arm, hey, if you can be accurate, I can still be your best friend.
Yeah.
Right? And I think in this offense, I hope that this doesn't come at the peril of DA because I love DA. But I think we saw a lot of what goes on with how he feels week to week with the team. And I think it's because his route tree personally has to open the field up. He's that talented. He's that kind of player. And he knows, guess what? We ain't got the quarterbacks to get that route ball. So I'm just there to open the field up. And I think Brock Bowers is going to go, that's cool with me. I'll eat. So I actually think Brock Bowers is 800 plus yards this year.
Ooh.
And I think you'll probably get 50 receptions out of him.
Let's go.
And really when you're talking about tight end numbers, if he has that kind of season, you Dalton Kincaid out the window, Jake Ferguson out the window, David Njoku, who I actually think is getting slept on.
Yeah.
I do not know why David Njoku, who was a top 3 tight end last year scoring, is getting ranked 9, 10 with the same team and maybe a clearer quarterback situation.
Will Deshaun Watson be able to bounce back?
Right. But if I'm going with a true sleeper, a guy who I really feel like if you want him at the ADP in the sleeper realm, it's going to be Brock Bowers. You can get him late. And I believe, again, mid-season, you're looking at some of these rookies really hitting that corner. And I think he could be let's call it a top 7 tight end down the stretch.
Need it.
All right.
I would say TJ Hawkinson as a second
coming off
injury. If you need somebody for the second half of the season and you have a solid tight end already as your starter, he's somebody to stash really well because he can really come back and be a top 5 tight end.
Absolutely. Even with so much question going on in Minnesota with their quarterback play.
Right.
Good old Darno looks like he's getting another go at it.
Woo.
So let's talk a little bit about now we big up some guys. Let's talk a little bit about players to avoid at their ADP. And for those who don't know, that's average draft pick, right? So that's normally between all of us who are doing this fantasy stuff, this is the average of where this guy is getting taken. So we're going to go over who we're concerned with, who's a little too high, clearly. We'll let Mitch go ahead and start that.
So I'm going to start with Jamar Chase. Right now, we're not really clear on his position with the team. He's having some trouble with the front office, from what I hear. He's up in the air. I feel like he's somebody who's dropping from where he's supposed to be. He's number 5 overall. I think guys are starting to drop him down, maybe even 8, 9 in that range. Same with Justin Jefferson. He's somebody I see falls to the late first round a lot just because we're unsure if they're going to be able to get the ball to him, man.
Right.
And then, like you said, Jahmyr Gibbs, now with his uncertainty, he's somebody who's getting pushed back, may not even be in the second round, So those are 3 guys that I'm like, I've been seeing them steadily drop from the mocks from where they were.
Yeah. Those are great ones. Mine would be if I'm a really look at the first round, I mean, for me, the first round isn't always as concerning, but like a real one, like my number one, and it's funny because I drafted him. My number one riskiest player is Devon
A-Chain. Yep.
This
That's what
year.
I was thinking too. Yeah.
I think he's way overrated in his ADP.
Yeah.
I think
22.
that there's way too much discrepancy. I think I got him. Golly, I think I might have got him like 19th. Maybe I got him later. I'll have to look that up. But I know I got him early, and I know why I got him.
Right.
But when I look back on it, it was definitely a mistake in the sense of bye weeks, constructing a roster, and then when you add the risk in, not the right play. But overall, I just don't know what's going to happen. And I think the disparity between him and Raheem Mostert is nowhere near as large as they play it in fantasy.
Nah, not even close.
Raheem Mostert would be another guy who's a sleeper for me on that running back.
He's way low on that.
Target him. He's way down there. This guy was running back 2 last year. Running back 2. So there's a lot of things when you're not a real big name, not one of these flashy guys. There's a lot of times that fantasy football will overlook you. Don't be one of those users who doesn't go, all right, let me just double check. Right. So that would be one of my real big guys. Another big guy who I think is getting overhyped, it would be Hollywood Brown.
Okay.
I think that he's going to be dope. He also just got injured as well. I think he'll probably be back for the start of the season, but I hate injuries going into the season and people acting like that's not a thing if he's ready for week 1. Still, you're missing time, but we don't know what ready really means. I personally believe the hype is he's really fast.
Yeah.
And Mahomes likes really fast guys. Okay, well, if that's the truth, then they'll just go to the faster guy, who's Xavier Worthy, right? And there's not enough room for all of you small guys to be whistling around this field. Right. And if Rashee Rice does truly come back, and all this hinges on that. If Rashee Rice ends up getting this domestic stuff and he ends up chalking this season, everything I'm saying goes out the window.
Right.
But assuming he comes back like we think, come on now. There is no way that he should be getting drafted where he's at. I would be very cautious about Hollywood Brown. I personally believe he's more likely to have a season like he did on the Cardinals, which is still good, serviceable, but nothing to write home about. I believe that's kind of the ceiling here. And then the last thing for me would be Dalton Kincaid. I feel bad saying it because we brought him up multiple times, but he's getting drafted for what people think he's gonna do completely. There's several guys like that this year. I would be very cautious if that's the tag surrounding a player. I never like drafting for potential unless this is the NBA draft and it's an 18-year-old.
Yeah.
If we're drafting for potential and you're getting a good pick out of me, everything has to go right for that pick to make sense.
Right.
Anything going wrong at all
is just bad.
And it's
disastrous.
Yeah, exactly. So, those would be my big threes to be cautious about. I think Kincaid could still have a great year. I think people forget that they still have Dalton Knox over there. They still are not Dalton Knox. Dallas, what's his name?
Dawson Knox.
Dawson Knox.
Yeah.
Got all these Dawson. Come on, guys. Come on, guys. Get it together. But I think, people forget he was serviceable.
Yeah.
And he likes to eat away at a chunk of the receptions for sure. Maybe not the tight ends, but he's gonna take those receptions. So I'm worried about that. You know what I mean? And people are drafting him like he's probably gonna be top 7. And that's pretty risky.
What do you think about Malik Neighbors at 45? He's somebody I've been like, I don't know if he should go that high. I don't know if he's gonna really be a number 1 in terms of fantasy, just with the quarterback situation and the offensive line situation over there.
I think he's really tough. I like Neighbors a lot. I like if it weren't for Marv going with Kyler,
right?
I like the idea of Neighbors making a bigger impact earlier than Marv, and not because Marv isn't ready now. Marv is ready and he's going to serve, but Neighbors is definitely he has that Odell in him that like hit the league and explode kind of thing. And I think that, Marv is going to Larry Fitzgerald you.
Yeah.
He's going to go to the hall. He's going to do all the right things. He's going to put the seasons up that really matter. But again, there's a difference with the kind of guy that kicks in the door and you don't know how he got 1,600 yards.
Yeah.
And I think Neighbors is that guy, and I think that's why the Giants drafted him, is because I think just like Odell, he's one of those guys that can make their quarterback better. And just by being like, nah, fuck that.
Yeah.
We're going to go ahead and get this done. But as in terms of being drafted at 45, I think he's being drafted a little bit off of what I'm talking about. And again, it's dangerous when you're playing that game. What I will say is there will be no shortage. If you guys watched the Hard Knocks, they love this kid.
Yeah.
They're going to put their franchise behind him. They were willing to lose Saquon. They were willing to shake all the faces, all the brand names from this team. Xavier McKinley, all these guys, they're willing to shake it because they feel he's the face. So there will be no shortage of him getting the opportunities.
Yes, sir.
So if we're drafting upon that, I'm okay with it. But I think this is a guy that you're more excited to see in your lineup than it may be to actually experience what happens on Sunday.
Right. And just two quick names for guys right after that, 49 and 50. We got Alvin Kamara, and then we got George Pickens.
Yeah.
Do we think these guys can have good seasons? I know the Alvin Kamara has been somebody who's been hurt a lot recently, and then George Pickens has had a terrible quarterback situations, but both are very, very talented. Are these guys, do you think, that could have good years?
So I think George Pickens, he went over 1,000 yards last year. And that was with, basically me back there. Kenny Pickett, you sprinkle in a little bit of, I think Mitch Trubisky maybe, or I don't even know who else they were sprinkling in. But, to get 1,000 yards with that is pretty much like me running for 1,000 yards right now. It's like, damn, bro, that's crazy. Dang, bro. Yeah. And they traded Deontay Johnson. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I think George Pickens will have a good year. My only worry with George Pickens is here. Because if George doesn't start good, George will check out.
Right.
And Pittsburgh's in the hardest division in football to me. Just year in and year out consistently. And they could easily lose this year.
Yeah, easily.
They could easily. And so Georgie could easily be checked out by game 7, game 8. But if not, and if he has a chip on his shoulder and he's angry, I think he'll absolutely go over 1,000 yards. I think he'll raise up his touchdowns. I think he will have a good year. In regards to Alvin Kamara, I actually think Alvin Kamara at that ADP is a sleeper.
Big time.
And especially if you're in PPR. Here's why. People have gotten so worried about Alvin Kamara because he really doesn't play running back anymore.
Right.
But he does still line up out the backfield. And in terms of fantasy, nobody's going to know that he's catching the ball out the backfield as opposed to running it 9 times out of 10 now when you slot him in at your RB.
Right.
So that late for a guy who graded out being a top 5 back last year. And that's surprising. It surprised me when I saw it. And this all hinges on his receiving production and his touchdown. But he had 80-plus receptions last year.
He can still get,
he can
still get the yards.
This is a guy who they will try to give 10 to 15 touches a game to. And if he's getting 11 looks through the air, you have a very high chance he's getting at least 6 catches. 6 catches a week in PPR
as a running back,
is really something. And then you sprinkle in, he might get a goal line here. He might get a da-da-da here. There's the extras. Right? I think that when you're looking at him being drafted around 40th, and we've talked about some of the other names that are, having to be pushed up positionally, I think this is a guy that people are forgetting what he can do, and that's because as a running back, you want him to run.
I mean, James Cook is higher than him. Joe Mixon's higher than him.
That's a problem.
Josh Jacobs is higher than him.
Yeah. The other
maybe they've had some better seasons recently.
Right.
I
don't know. The other guy to look at for me who's way too low, just off the strength, is Najee Harris.
Oh yeah, he's super low. You can get him as your bench running back.
They're tweaking. I know people look at him as kind of washed, and I know people.
DeAndre Swift.
Yeah, and honestly, Jalen Warren, like you can get those guys late together. You pair them up, bro. You probably got a running back.
Yeah,
you know. And Najee, to me, dude, people are sleeping on his usage, man. Yeah. This is unacceptable for him to be that far down and to. Dude, he's had some off years, and that Pittsburgh offense has been atrocious.
Terrible.
They're not in the red zone.
My man cannot get any yards without getting hit first.
Bro, if this team is average, he could get 10 touchdowns.
Mm-hmm. Easy.
Where are you getting that at that point in the draft? We're talking about him getting drafted, if I remember correctly. He was getting drafted in the 70s.
He's after, like, Zamir White.
He's in, like, the 70s, 80s.
His ADP is 69.
69. So he was in the 70s when I was rocking a couple. Right. Now you're at 69.
A lot of people are passing him up. I feel like
stuff is fluctuating because people are starting to realize he was just too damn low. Because he was even lower than that.
Mm-hmm.
And like, so people are pushing back. But even at that ADP, think about this was a guy who is still 27 who was getting drafted top 10 for like 4 years straight.
Warren 83.
Right? And so these are guys where, especially if you're in PPR with Warren, you need to go take a look at that guy.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Because this is a guy who is the number one handcuff in the game to me. Najee Harris could go down, right? But he's also a guy that with or without Najee being injured, he's going to get 10 to 15 touches. That is very rare for a backup.
I also think a guy like Cooper Kupp, just where he is in ADP, is such a like steal for if he like falls to you in like the third or fourth round, bro. Like
Puka should not be getting drafted higher than Cooper, to me.
I feel you. It's interesting that they flopped him. They said, now Puka's the number one.
Yeah.
But it's
I'd be very scared of drafting Puka.
Cooper could easily go back to his status where he was, barring any more injuries.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be very scared of drafting Puka this year. I think Puka will still serve, but like you guys are not understanding how good Matt Stafford is at creating production for receivers, and you don't understand how much of a funnel it was to Puka.
Yeah,
there was nobody there for 6-7 weeks. It was him and Kyron Williams making a career for themselves, making a career, and they weren't winning a lot, right? And so. You just got to realize from what I've been hearing from their camp as well is the offense is running through Cooper Kupp, right? And that still should breed good things for Puka. But Puka had, I think, 1,300 yards. He went
crazy.
Dude. So to think that he's going to be, I think Puka was getting drafted as a high second round pick.
Puka is 13 and Cooper is 27.
Yeah, see, to me, too much.
That's
too much discrepancy. Too much discrepancy for a guy who, just like Mitch is telling y'all, Cooper Kupp was the number one receiver for 3 years in a row. And it wasn't close. And really, he hasn't lost any of the traits that made him do that.
Yeah.
He was never sub 4.4. He was never 40-inch vert, right? It was all routes, timing, and that relationship that he was able to build with Matthew Stafford.
I think just this year, there's just a lot of interesting guys out there that are later picks that could really show out for your team and be somebody that really puts you over the top, especially in terms of going to the playoffs.
Yeah. And I would also say be very careful this year with buys. A lot of
same weeks,
bro. Very weird.
Week 12, week 14, week 6. It was weird.
I've done a lot of times where I've been able to get by just drafting players on different teams. I'm like, you know what? He's not on the same team, so we're good.
Yeah.
Don't do that this year.
There's
okay.
A lot of the same.
I looked up my first 3 out of 4 picks were by week 6.
Yeah. And
they're all on different teams. So just be very careful this year. It seems to be weird that a lot of these big name teams are overlapping with other big name teams in bye weeks. So that's dangerous. But yeah, I definitely want to highlight that before we move forward, that do try to win the back end of your draft. I think more than ever this year. Yeah, we got about, fofo. But more than ever, we definitely are in a situation where you're going to want to win that because the top is a coin flip.
Yeah.
The top is a coin flip. So there's a lot of guys that we think can win it for you in the end. And, we'll make sure that we have you guys covered on those guys as fantasy football opens up as well. Week by week, there'll be little sleepers that pop up, waiver wire ads. We'll make sure we're on top of that. So before we end today, we just want to close on just a worst or your worst fantasy draft day story. And this can cover a lot of
I don't think I have a day in mind because I tend to be somebody who likes to do a bunch of drafts. But mainly the biggest thing is just what we talked about kind of at the beginning is when you are banking on that player getting back to you because they're so far down and then somebody scoops them. Like so far this year, the guy, Brock Bowers, has been the guy who I've been getting swooped from left and right. Dudes are drafting him in like the 9th round for some reason as their second tight end. And so it's pretty annoying because there are other guys like Dallas Goedert and some other people who are a little bit higher than him. And dudes are going straight to Brock Bowers. And I'm trying to get him in the latest rounds that I can. But he's just somebody who just keeps getting swooped from me. But just all those times when you're just waiting and you're like, like that 1 minute goes so fast when it's your turn.
Yeah.
But when you're waiting 5, 6 different picks, it's like, bruh, these people ever going to draft? Do they even know what they're doing? Like, why are they taking so long to pick somebody?
For real.
Even though it's taking just 30 seconds.
Real talk.
But those are the things that really irritate me, man. Every draft is just like, I have a setup of like, all right, these guys are spaced out enough where I should be able to get off. And then like 3 of them get picked in like the 8th round. And you're like, who do I get now? I'm not really sure. Don't really want this guy. I was never looking at him, but now he just seems like the best option.
Right.
And those are just the worst drafts when you get that last pick or you get down to the kicker and defense and stuff, and you're just like, I have Zach Charbonnet. That's my running back on the bench, bro.
Right.
I have Zach Moss. Like,
I got Zach Moss,
bro. Like,
right.
Just guys where you're like, geez, I could have got Najee, but they just back-to-back on him with him and DeAndre.
Then I had to wait on it, and then now I'm at Zach Moss.
Right. Every time I had to be like, he's not high enough to get on the ADP, he gets taken, and now I'm down to like even worse, where it's like he was the 92nd running back, and now I'm at the 125. Like, Jesus Christ.
Right.
Like, that's why I was getting blessed that people weren't really on like a Trey Benson yet, and his like projected points had him really low, so he was somebody I was able to be like, I'm going to consistently try and get him.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. My worst fantasy draft day story would have to be, what year? I feel like it was 2019. Mm-hmm. Maybe it was 2018, but it was the year Le'Veon Bell did that holdout. No. And I've had some real horrifying draft day stories. Like I've had some from wall to wall, and mainly these happened in my first 2 picks. Mm-hmm. I'm just like the Niners, really. Like we struggle with our first 2 picks, but boy, we can hit from 3rd and on.
Yeah.
So Le'Veon, I was number 2 overall.
Mm-hmm. Seems like a sure thing.
I'm trying to remember who went first, because it was somebody where it was like
it wasn't Derek.
It might have been Derrick Henry at that point. It was somebody where it was like, ooh, that hurts, but I'm not mad.
Right.
Because I got Big Bell. Right. And this is something I really learned about because drafting with emotion will kill you.
Yeah.
So Le'Veon had just beaten the brakes off of me the year before. And he had a career year and was one of the better fantasy years for a running back, honestly. He was catching out of the backfield. I mean, he was scoring touchdowns. He was a good 25 a week for sure. Mm-hmm. And so, I just remember running into him twice in that season and him going crazy on me.
Yeah.
I'm talking about
Tyreek Hill status.
Yo, it looked like he was at a kid's birthday party, running through it. Just, is that your team? So of course the second pick comes up, my eyes get all big. And you know those notes where it's like, be a little scared, but don't be that scared. It's gonna work out, but you don't know what workout means.
There's no way he'll miss a lot of games.
Bro, nobody thought he was gonna do what he did. You know what I mean?
No shot.
So, long story short, I drafted him 2nd overall. do the, the shmoney dance. I feel real good about it. I feel like, man, we locking in another successful season for, Big Benny Blanc and his team. And, it just dragged on forever. Became a horrifying saga that I had to now participate in. And Le'Veon Bell never came back. Le'Veon Bell decided not going to play this year.
I'm gonna go box.
I'm gonna go wait on a contract. And for those who drafted me,
sorry about it.
No reimbursement, no get backs.
Sorry.
Right. So I essentially just threw my first pick out the window. Just I don't want it. Second overall, not for me.
You're killing me, Smalls.
I'm gonna act like the Raiders today. I don't want it.
Whoa, wait.
What?
Take it
I
easy.
don't want this second pick. But anyway, I've had that, and I've had similar stories like that play out multiple times, including a Kawhi Leonard tragedy. And so I've learned to try my best to, one, avoid injured players in those premier slots.
Right. If
you have a premier pick, don't James Harden me. Don't go grab one of these guys where you're like, I think he'll be good. Get a sure shot who's ready for the year.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you won't regret it. And then also, don't draft a guy just because he whooped you. Right? And that was the same thing with him and Kawhi. Both times they've just, every time I run into them on somebody else's team, I can't seem to get anything other than
even though you did pick Tyreek though, right? And he did win off.
Yes. No.
Sometimes it works though. Sometimes it works out for you.
So I've had some, I've had some get back, you know what I mean? But yeah, that would have been the couple times where I go through a whole year without even seeing my first overall pick, and it's tough. It's tough to open that app at that point. So this was our preview. Like we said, we have a big season build-up. We're going to kind of go into the real stuff as football progresses and gets through mini camp and gets through these preseason games. We're going to go ahead and break down the Raiders. We'll break down the Niners. We'll break down the outlook of the league. But we wanted to make sure we brought this fantasy football right to y'all door, as promised. If you guys have any questions, if you guys have any players that you think we missed, please put them in the comments. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe with all the stuff we have. We appreciate it. And if you are new, go ahead and hit that button, that red button, subscribe. We would love it. We need 50 so we can start going live. And we can't wait to continue to build this community with y'all. Signing out another week from the Say Somethin Fan.